Welcome back, students, to another fun day of reading workshop. Today is Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. The materials you will need for today are your pencil, your reading journal, and your My Book. If you don't have these supplies, go ahead and pause, collect them, and then press play whenever you get back. Okay, now that you have your supplies, I want to go over our objectives for this lesson before we get started. I will review author's purpose. We will recognize the significance of author's purpose, and you will recognize the author's purpose to gain a deeper understanding of the text. Readers. We've discussed author's purpose before. An author's purpose is his or her reason for writing a text. Knowing this purpose helps you recognize the author's message and get a deeper understanding and meaning from the text. Now, we already know that authors usually write to persuade, to inform, to entertain, or to teach a lesson. If the author's purpose is to persuade, the author wants the readers to think or act a certain way. If the author's purpose is to inform, the writer wants to share information about a topic. If the author's purpose is to entertain, then the author wants readers to enjoy a story. If the author's purpose is to teach a lesson, the writer wants readers to learn that lesson. It is important to think about an author's intended audience. Who is the author trying to persuade? This will help you determine the author's reasons for writing. Today, you will be identifying the author's purpose as you read Potatoes on Rooftops or reread Potatoes on Rooftops. I want you to turn to page 318 in your My Book. Look over the pages from 318 to 321. What is this section mainly about? Well, watch as I model how I determine what this section of text is mainly about. I'm going to start reading from the top of page 318. You can follow along in your My Book. Every available inch. What was old is new again. Those victory gardeners were ahead of their time. Even in peacetime, there are plenty of reasons to grow our own foods in cities. But not everyone has a yard that can be turned into a garden. And some neighborhoods have no green spaces at all. How do you turn a concrete jungle into a source of fresh, healthy food? Fortunately, there's nothing engineers and architects love better than a challenge. Vertical gardens. When cities are too jam-packed to create wide growing spaces, one alternative is to go up and up and up. Also known as living walls, vertical gardens can transform brick, concrete, and siding into artistic and even edible walls. The Urban Farming Food Chain Project in Los Angeles created food-producing wall panels that are mounted on buildings. Those who tend the walls reap the harvest, which is not sold commercially. You can create your own wall panel by recycling shelving units, adding hanging pots to wooden fences, or even hanging an old shoe organizers. So far, I can infer from the text that the author is trying to persuade me into believing that gardening in cities is important. The author is also trying to express to me the different ways to garden in the city. Let's continue reading. Towering farms. Vertical farms take the concept of growing upward to the next level, skyward. Designers have been imagining high-rise growing spaces that aim to produce as much food as possible without draining all of the city's resources. Creating a vertical farm is more complicated than building a living wall. It's a bigger venture than just converting office towers into farms. For example, if sunlight can't reach all of the plants, solar panels may need to be installed to supply energy for artificial growing lights. Designs also have have to include ways to capture, recycle, and pump water throughout the building. Until someone constructs the first vertical farm, we don't know all the challenges of building one. We won't know all of the advantages such a farm might bring to a community. But with so many people energized by the innovative plants, it's only a matter of time until we find out. An architect named Gordon Graff designed a 58-story green building called Sky Farm for the city of Toronto. It has 8 million square feet of growing space. That's enough to feed 35,000 people per year. Time will tell whether a costly, untested project like this one will come to be. But it's the right kind of dreaming. Pictured above are beans and zucchini growing up a city home trellis. Can you you can't when you can't spread out, you can always stretch up. Vertical farms take the concept of growing upward to the next level, skyward. Shaping up. Plants need sunlight to grow. In a vertical building, the upper levels can cast a shadow over the lower levels. So designers are experimenting with shapes that will allow light to reach all the growing spaces. Natalie Jermazhenko, an engineer and artist, created pod-like tree greenhouses. Although they are called urban space stations, their job here on Earth is to provide growing spaces. Each structure's cleared, curved surface absorbs light as the sun moves across the building. The pod also recycles air and water from the building below. Because it doesn't need soil, the station is light enough to be raised off the ground. Burrowing underground. What lies beneath our cities? In Tokyo, an underground bank vault was turned into a high-tech farm called Pasona O2. The farm covers 10,000 square feet, 1,000 square meters, and grows more than 100 types of produce. It uses a combination of halide, LED, and fluorescent lights, as well as hydroponics, raising crops without soil. With hydroponics, plants are grown in water containing nutrient solutions or materials like gravel or perlite. The word hydroponics comes from the Greek word for water, hydro, and labor, ponos. In addition to growing food, Persona O2 has a very important goal: to create jobs for youth and older employees who need a second career. Rooftop gardens. Hydroponics can also solve the problem of how to take advantage of all that terrific unused space way up there on the rooftops. Not all rooftops can handle a heavy load of dense soil, but hydroponics can lighten the load by using lighter materials or shallow water beds. Rooftops get screamingly hot in the summertime, up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Celsius, warmer than the air. But a green roof can actually be cooler than the air. That's because plants do a cool thing called transpiration. They take water in their roots and then release it through their leaves. The heat from the air is used to evaporate the water and bring temperatures down. The idea is clearly catching on. A group called the Rooftop Garden Project has greened roofs all over Montreal and has begun sharing their techniques with people in other countries. They've even taken their skills to Haiti to help establish agriculture there in the aftermath of the 2010 earthquake. In Chicago, the Gary Comer Youth Center occupies a building that used to be an abandoned warehouse. It's a huge reinforced structure topped by a 906 square yard, 800 square meter rooftop garden. The soil for the garden is 18 inches deep and grows an amazing 1,000 pounds of organic vegetables per year. The produce is brought home by the volunteer gardeners and is used in the center's cooking classes. In Tokyo, two telecommunication companies sponsored the planting of sweet potatoes in the rooftop gardens. They called this project Green Potato. The wide leaves of the plants were so effective at transpiration that the leaf covered areas were more than 68 degrees cooler than the areas in the not covered leaves. Hydroponics can solve the problem of how to take advantage of all that terrible unused space way up on the rooftops. Let me ask you this question. What is the author's opinion? Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I got ahead of myself. Listen to this. So, after reading, I want to answer the question I asked earlier. What is this section mainly about? Well, mainly, this section of text is about creating gardens in tight urban spaces by growing food vertically, underground, or on rooftops. I can see this information as I read and also can tell from the headings and subheadings of this section. I want to ask you this question. What is the author's opinion about these types of gardens? Take some time, and when I say go, jot down your response and thoughts in your My Book on the My Notes section of page 321. Go now. Okay, welcome back. I also want to ask you a second question. What facts does the author provide to support this opinion? Remember to use text evidence and full sentences. Write down your answer in your My Notes section as well on page 321. Okay, now that you're finished answering these questions, I want you to submit a picture of these notes that you jotted down to your teacher today. You will also read independently for 20 minutes. After reading, you're going to answer the questions in the Reading Workshop Author's Purpose Google form. Have a great time reading, and thank you for joining me.